welcome Manny Rosario from the YouTube channel at Boricua Frances and Finance on the Road. I know
Hello.
him for a long
Hello.
time, right? So
Hello, Niels.
thank you for your time, and thank you for agreeing, being tortured on my first episode. So
No
uh,
problem, man. It's a pleasure.
I know you from be an engineer, with me for a long time, father, long time traveler. And today, my first episode, I wanted to talk to you about things that I wish I knew before I started school and things that I didn't learn while in school. So I want to pick your brain on this topic. So before we start, do you want to tell us a little more about your YouTube channel? I'm gonna put a link in the description for everybody else to go and follow you, but I want everybody to
Yeah,
get to know you.
yeah. So we have my wife and I. We have two YouTube channels. One is Finances on the Road, and in that channel we share our life and experience living in an RV and how people can now in the 21st century work and travel no matter where you are in the world. You can still work and make money either by your own business of working for somebody or working as freelancers. There's many different ways that you could earn money or make money or create money a certain way. And that is what we concentrate in Finances on the Road. The people can follow us and see. We also share our experiences while traveling also. So in the RV, the different places that we stay and so on. I'm also have a channel kind of is like the child from the Finances on the Road, which is my specific experiences as a person from Puerto Rico who is living in Europe and France, and my experiences of that. So I share how it go for me, what I see, what difference I see, and that it could be politics, it could be the thinking about money, that could be education, uh, food. It doesn't matter in reality in my part because it's my experience on the way that I see it as a person who is from a different background, a different culture. That's the two channels. So El Borico Frances and Finances on the Road.
No, I definitely I think that inspiring. I really don't know how you really do it. I really like your Monday videos, to explain the tech, right, that you use. And
Yeah, with the Monday how to, and I try to divide it like that: the Monday how to, and then the Tuesday workout, and I talk a little bit about Tuesday workout, Sunday walk, and they're different ones. And then Thursday I speak French, so I divide it like that, and a lot of it is really short videos of my experiences, yeah, as a person from a different culture. And after actually living for many years in the United States, that's the thing.
I think
Because
that's the interesting thing, because, and that's why I wanted to bring you to my first episode, not only by the experience, is by the different culture that you have gone through your life, living, born and raised in Puerto Rico, moving to the United States, now in France, right? I was born and raised in Panama, right? And then I moved to the US. Now my kids are growing up in the United States, right? So I
yeah, yeah.
for me it's just different culture, different way of learning, different values, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah, definitely. Like
this
yeah, it's like that.
so
I
it's
do
very
have
interesting.
two kids that they grew up in the United States also, but now they're traveling. Is older now. They're not like you little kids. You know that, right? One is in Spain actually right now, and the other one is in Philadelphia. So but they both were born and raised in the United States.
That's yeah,
So it was.
I know. That's why I always I try to reach out to you when I need advice, right? But today I really want to that, as you know, right? I I myself being, always, since I've been in the United States, I've been in school, right? Uh, around
Mm-hmm.
10 years in school. So, and there are certain things that I learned, right, through, academic education, but there are other things that are important for your well-being and for your development that school don't teach you, right? And that is the one that
Mm-hmm.
things that I wanted to pick your brain on. And the output from this is, everybody that listen to this video podcast is certain things that we need to be aware and learn to be able to be a better version of yourself, right? So one of those things is the financial literacy, right? The talk about money, wealth, right? So for me,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would like to hear your experience. Is that for me when I moved to US is nobody want like to talk about money, right? So like if like if, even like co-workers, right, like you can have the same position, but one of the things that people don't ask, like your salary or like your goals with money, things like that, so is not clear, right? um if the end goals, right, and with money, right, like is there's that little stigma, like you don't ask people how much they make, right, what is their wealth, right? And for me, if I see somebody very successful, I'm not asking them like how much they make, because it's not the amount, but I'm interested in the process, right? Like what what do they learn, what do they apply, what system they apply, like how do they get to where they are, right? And that is what's interesting to me. Can I pick one of those things to obtain that to my life, right, and improve, right? So what do you think about, so how, well, first, how important is financial literacy, right? They talk about money, right? How, not only in like with your spouse, right, like you, if one, and they talk about money with your spouse, right? Talk about money with your kids, right? Talk about money with yourself, right? Like because you can make $1 million, right, and if your expenses are over 1 million, right, you really know are financial, free, right, independent,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the and that's one of the things that I'm teaching my kids now about finance, right? I mean, in the school, I mean, I took the MBA. Of course, you learn about balance sheet, how to calculate that for business. But I'm talking about the money, how do you manage your own money, right? Your income, right? Your expenses, right? Your burn rates, right? So, what do you think about how important is that, right?
Yeah. It is extremely important. And now, when you talk about the school, like if we go to the part of, the school, it's not teaching that and so on. There are a few aspects of that. There's one aspect that if we're speaking about a public school where the masses of kids go to, it is extremely difficult to have a curriculum that includes that, okay, based on the time and so on. So let's be clear of that. So we're not just bashing schools and so on. But what happens is that it concentrates in what is intellectual. Okay, so how to read, how to write, how to do additions and so on. Science, maybe a little bit. Maybe there some schools include a little bit of arts and a little bit of health, or what is extra curriculum. And a lot of that evolves or is around what is intellectuality of the person, of the human being, of the kid. But it doesn't touch much in what is emotional, right? That is the part of the emotion. And believe it or not, money is part of that. Okay, so a lot of the times when you work in money, you'll find out that it's not only the bank account, but it's how you feel about it, what you were taught about it, and what you saw your parents or the ones who took care of you do about it. That's the key of it. Okay, that is maybe why schools don't get into that section, because that's what we were talking about. If we were, like what doesn't get taught in school. In this case, that's the way that I see it. I may be wrong. I know there's some schools that are new schools that teach more than that. They're private school. They teach the kids, how to create their own business and, maybe like doing um, make believe, it's maybe their own business, but they make believe and so on. So that's great in some schools, but it's not the masses of the school, right? But like I was saying, a lot has to do with time and the amount of kids that you have that they have. Um, the reason I feel that the people don't speak about the money and so on is because it is a subject where, depending on what culture you are from, could affect the outcome of the future of some people, right? Because some people, it is true, but some people maybe don't want to relate with somebody who maybe makes certain amount of money or doesn't make certain amount of money, or is not the person that is super business savvy or something like that. And that is the reality. It's a reality. But when you go back to kids, the key is the emotional part of it, because once the kid understands that it's just money is just a tool, really, that you're gonna get goods from, you know, and that's it. It doesn't make you, it doesn't make the person, and so on. Then you can start the conversation about money. Okay. So, see, if you ask me about, why these things happen, is because I think I would say many schools do not have the time or do not want to go into the subject.
Yes.
And then two, because a lot of it has to do with something that is going to be go back to the values of whatever that family is and so
Yeah.
on. It's
No,
very
you're right.
so. I think that's why it's not taught. It's not taught because it has to do with the personal value. So sometimes, even if the school may be trying to teach it, if the parents, are all the time, morning must make you happy or whatever the belief is and so on, without explaining anymore, that's what goes into the kids, you know. And it is very difficult for a teacher to say that, because the teacher has to concentrate in the subject that he teaches. And if the teacher says something like money doesn't make you happy and so on, and they go to the parents and say, well, the teachers is that, could be a conflict there, because, it's not, you have to explain yourself more what exactly it is. It's not that it doesn't make you happy. It's just that it's not the reason why people are happy.
No.
Money, it's that direction. There's not a direct connection. And it's always what I say. There's two things. There's not a direct connection between school and money, right? And there's not a direct connection about being happy or not happy and money. So that's,
Just for
I
like
don't know if I
no, no,
answered your
I agree
question.
I agree that the responsibility has to rely on both, the parents, right? Primarily the parents, right? At home,
Mm-hmm.
and the school, right? Because I think that the two most influential, you know, uh, things, right, is your family, your environment, and then your school, right? Because this is the majority that time, right, that your kids spend, right? So like I know parents that are very savvy with money, and they teach their kid early on about the belief, right, that you say, right, like the belief of what really money is, where they come from, and what the things you can obtain with money. How can you serve others, right? And it's not that money make you happy, right? And but it's a tool, a mechanism, right, to buy goods and service and help others, right? And and of course, to sustain yourself, right? But it's not. There's a big differentiator, right, between the love of money and being greedy, right? That's that talk, right? Because you can go in that path, right, and you will become because you don't want to be the the guy with most money and be unhappy, right? You don't want to be
Mhm.
the guy with the most money and don't be fulfilled, right? So your money is just a tool, like, and I that's why I teach my kids early on that I they know why I go to work, right? So the early on, right, on their four, I explain we have a little cash register, right? We had the piggy, right? And I explained to her, okay, you you obtain these, you want this gift, and even though that she's under four, I have a whiteboard that we have different stars, right? And then she work on it. And I say, okay, you work on this, right? You win a star, right? So it just for me to teach her about, what, like work ethics and things like that, and where money come from and things like that. But you're right, it's a balance, right, between families, right? Your responsibility to the parents, but my point is, like, if you are born in a single family home, right? The dad is not there, or you're born in a the circumstance, right, that you are born in a in an environment, right, that is not nourished, right, for a kid, right, and their parents are trapped in this debt cycles, or they are not financial free, right, or they are not working towards their success, right, in money, right. So it's hard for them to teach their kids, right, that the path, right, because their parents themselves are in that trap of spending more than they make, right. I mean, this is just the basic advice that most people give about money, right, that it doesn't matter how much you make, it's just how much you keep. And but there's different thought about that, but we can go over. you know for me, it's like things like a school should teach the economic. The belief on money can be left to the parents, right? Because if you come from them, I'm Christian. If you come from a different religious background, you can say, okay, this is, we don't talk about money because of this, right? Or money doesn't make you happy. So just belief come from the family, but the economics on it, right? So if school spend time, like for example, there's like some schools to teach have physical activity, right? Like when I went to school, we have a class of physical activity. We go put shorts and go play, run, right? We do play with the ball, things like that, right? So we have physical activity. Now I mean, I still, once you go to school and to a different process, I will learn more about it, right? And stay how to mechanic, right? But for me, I think that the school should be responsible or have a class, a basic class on the economics part of it, right? Like, of income, right? What are taxes in the United States, right? How your taxes affect your income, right? You could be don't believe, because it doesn't matter what you believe about money. You still need to know about how taxes work. You need to know about income, what is a W-4, W-2, you had health benefits, all these little things, right. Have an emergency fund, right, for rainy days. So those little things can be universal. So those things that what school can teach, right, a kid, right. That's So I think that responsibility just start with home. But if we want to help more than our own nucleus of family, if you want to help society, maybe school should play a role in it, because to lift kids out of poverty, right. So that's my take, right. Don't know if you agree on.
Correct. Well, yeah, it's just the thing is that it's more complex than that because this situation that you are talking is provide uh, the there's the is if there's certain needs already met. But what happens is that there's certain schools, is what I was telling you, it depends what school you're talking about. I'm talking about the school of the masses. The school that is not a private school, is not, it's a school that you're going to deal with maybe a kid that has not eaten in the morning the breakfast well, independently of what is the reason, you know, independently, because that's a whole different subject. Okay, the school has only certain amount of time, certain amount of hours to teach certain amount of things. Right? So depending the age, so for example, I agree with you if that class of the taxes and so on is an elective in high school, and so on, or a requirement in high school that gives them certain number of credits and so on. But in elementary school, you still have to deal with the power of, okay, you better keep know how to at least write and read to be able to make it to first grade, and then first grade, okay, to be, and then to be able, and then they have to deal with that section. Now, if somehow it can both be incorporated, that would be great. But the only thing is that you're talking about a system that the teacher themselves maybe are struggling with their home because they don't
Financial.
have enough income and all that.
Yeah.
So, and I know about that. I know about that. I know, and like my wife is a teacher, and I know that in some schools that she has taught, the kids have way better cars than all the teachers.
Yeah.
Like way better cars and way better,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I mean, it just
And
surprised me. I mean, it just
yeah,
very revealing, when you told me that, like, when your wife was teaching, like your private school, right? It will be hard for the teacher themselves, yeah, to send their kids there, right? Because of the price of tuition,
yeah,
the books, things like that. So
yeah.
you are working in a place and you're providing education, right? And you you might feel that you have at least some discount to bring your own kids there, right? So
Well, even with
kids
the
go to public
discount,
school
they
while
do
you work
have
in a
many
private school.
times now. Many times they have the discount, but even with the discount, it's quite high the price for the income that the teachers
Now,
get.
of
And
course,
again, what I'm telling you is that all that becomes a whole different subject.
yeah,
That
correct. I
is
mean, I'm
of
talking about like
teach.
things that school doesn't teach you. But of course, I mean, the level of the curriculum of what is taught had to be dependent of the age, right, of the kid, right? Like for me, for a 4 year old, I just talk about stars, right? I'm not talking about even the money, right? But for me, it's more like teaching that you earn, right? Nobody makes money, right? People when I hear say makes money, it sounds good, right? But nobody makes money unless you are the Federal Reserve printing money, right? But you earn it, right? So,
Mhm.
and when I moved to the United States, I had the idea, right? I have the philosophy that is when you provide a value, right, to the society, right, you provide a value to the marketplace, you get compensated, right, based on that value on money, right? And it's up to you what you do with your money, right? So then is where it comes the education, like what do you do, like the amount is important, right? Because you need to have certain income. I mean, I don't believe that. I mean, I don't want to make the video about just finance, right, money, right? But it's not only the amount, right? And the amount, people say, oh, the amount doesn't matter, only what you say, and everything matters, right? Like the amount of income also is important, right? Because you cannot compare 1950 income, right, that you need to live in those days to now, right? Because you need to have certain amount of income to be able to live, a normal life, right? And still be able to save, right? But if you are below the poverty line, it's hard to tell somebody, oh, you have to live within your means because everything is spent, right? In food, right? Transportation or housing, right? That's one of the major expenses. But my point is that there should be some type of elective, could we just start with that elective, right? Depending just in high school, middle school, maybe some games, right, in lower school that teach about the importance of saving, right? Because it doesn't matter what level you are, in or middle class you are, or high class, you need to learn about saving, right? You need to learn about investing, right? So that was my point, right? So the belief and things like that, oh, of course, is always start with the parents, right? And research has always shown that parents, kids with both their parents, right, and normally tend to do better, right? Not all the time, but in general, right? And it tells you the importance of both the role of the mother and father, right? And the level of education the kids. But that's my point was there should be some type of thought on that, right? On taxes or investment, right? And to kids, right? Or teenagers, right? At that age, they should understand that, right? Before they go out and they borrow, tons of money, right? And student loan to go to school, right? Things like that. So those things have to be aware, especially you go 20 years old and you start living by yourself, right? And then you can get in the trap of debt, right? So
Correct. That is true. That what you're saying is true. The thing is that even sometimes uh, with that debt, in this case, sometimes you are a 20-year-old, all that. Sometimes could be that that kid gets into that debt because it's the only way that that kid can get to, for example, the university, if it's what they want to do, right? Now, it's not something that I would advise. But if we're talking about a kid that maybe is going to be the first one in the family to make it to a university, it's maybe a big deal. And for them, maybe to get into that debt is worth it,
yeah,
you know? And that's why the teaching of money becomes so complex when you include the school. All what I'm talking about is when you include the school, when you include teaching it in the school. I agree that it should be taught. The question is how and who. Because if you're going to have somebody who has the problem with money themselves
they
to
should be
teach
taking the
a
class
class,
there too as well, right? So
there's not, so it is not but if you're talking about more like, okay, no, math wise, like maybe math should have a chapter in adding and subtracting money or whatever, something like that, I would agree with you. And then on the other side is social science has a part of the relationship with wealth, then maybe, something like that would work. But what I'm saying is that us from the outside is a little bit more uh, uh, it is a little bit it is easier for us from the outside to look at it and say, oh, well, we could do this, but it's complex. It's more complex when you're dealing with a curriculum to offer to masses. Is what I'm saying. When you offer it to masses,
yeah.
is it?
Well,
Yeah,
the
the
first
word
step,
might.
I said, financial education should be taught in school, right? So if we agree on that, right, like we agree on that, now the method, who, right, when, right, in what stage, that can be, look into it, right, like research, right, because maybe the kid at, at 10 years old will not, learn about it, right, compared to a 15, 16, and the method is visual, right, audio, or all these things. But first just agree on there have been some discussion on it, because no matter what, when kids leave high school, they either go to school or they go get a job. And I don't know, but if everybody understand like, okay, when I get out of high school, the I think our time is done, 30 minutes, right? So I
Okay.
really don't want to take you more, but I want to close on a few things, right? So probably I'm gonna edit this and then move to the other one. Did you hear the sound?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the, okay.
Okay, so let's start. So the I think that first we agree in that financial literacy, this had to be taught in school, right? Now, um, the when, how, that can be discussed, but when high school students they graduate, right? They might have the idea, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna go to the workplace or I'm gonna go to school, right? I'm gonna keep, educating myself, right? And it's so, I mean, it's just like when they graduate, it's hard for them to understand what they're good at, right? Or what they want to study, right? I mean, I had that problem when I graduated at 18 and I wasn't sure exactly, where, my skills, my values, right? What I love to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one problem, right? And jumping right away to education, right? Because of fear of missing out, right? Okay, I don't want to be too old going to school or whatever. That
Mm-hmm.
is the problem, right? So that's one part of the problem, right? But the reality is that if they don't go to school right away, they might have to get a job, right? And if you ask somebody like, why do you work? Yes, you can tell you the HR, PR response. Oh, I love this, right? I love the work environment. I like learning, right? I like my colleagues, right? It's challenging, it's rewarding, right? They are green incentive, right? You can see all these things, right? But if they don't pay you, right? If the employer doesn't pay you, you cannot pay rent, right? You cannot go buy food, right? You cannot put gas to go to work, right? So you part of working, for somebody is because you get paid, right? So sometimes when you ask somebody, I ask somebody, when I wash my car, I say, oh, what do you do for a living? Why do you work there? And I just was curious of the response, and they did, oh, they care about the environment and those things, and they did not mention money, right? And it get me thinking that, like, ask myself, like, will I work there if I don't get paid, right? And part of it should be also say, okay, I get paid well, right? That's why I want to work there. Why is that's one thing that um I really we got deviated, but that is one thing that after graduation, that's why money is important. That's my point, right? That money is important for your parents to pay you for education, right? And money is important when you graduate. Most kids want to go to school, right? To get a career that pays well. So it goes back to money, right? So
Well, that's the thing. Okay, we can solve, but what I'm telling you is that when you're talking about teaching, you cannot teach that money is important because then you draw parameters and where money and can be used and how it can be used and where you can go with that subject. I agree with you that the kids can learn and should be taught about money, okay, and what money does. How important or not important it is will depend on other factors, okay? Because I do know young kids that do work because it's good for the environment and do not care about the money. And that's what I'm telling you. And in this new world right now, more and more kids are thinking that way.
yes,
And what I'm saying is that they are actually thinking more and more in what the future of their future is going to look if the environment is not there. And that's another subject, what I'm telling you. And then that's where what I'm telling you, money draws a line because they're not willing to make certain amount of money if the environment is compromised.
Yeah.
And that's why the subject becomes such a complex subject. And that's why it becomes a complex subject at school because our conversation is about teaching about money in school, right?
Yes.
Why money doesn't get taught in school. And that's what I'm saying, that there are many different factors of it. I agree that some sort of education about money should be done in schools. I cannot necessarily tell you or exactly tell you how because of the masses. If it's a private school that has the enough resources for it, I can see how they can do it. You can also, well, the public schools are more maybe as a elective, but I wouldn't say that is super, super simple. But the conclusion is that yes, I agree with you. It should be taught in
Yes.
schools.
I think yes. I correct. I think to conclude, I like your point. You know that it has to be taught in school, and but the point that you mentioned that is important. I think is managing money is important, no matter where you are. So that is that 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 is the thing that had to be taught, and I agree with you. Hopefully, it can hopefully it can actually be taught in public school, right? Because that's the majority of kids are there, right? So it will be a major impact, right? How to manage your money, not getting to credit card debt, right? So I think that it's very important, right? So but the subject was, can they be teaching in school, and I'm glad that you were able to discuss this with me because of your experience, right? So thank you one more time. And for everybody listening, you can always check Manny Rosario YouTube and podcast,
Frances.
The Boricua Frances. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao.